Hi, Jen. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioner. How you doing?
Well, I like the weather forecast for at least 2 days.
I
What do
know
you
I saw
think?
that winter storm warning
I know
pop
I'm
up.
getting that already. And I'm like, really? But do we ever need the moisture? At least the snow is off our roof. My husband has quit worrying about that and the ice dams that could happen. So, yes. Okay, good. Well, I just talked to Doug.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he's ready to go somewhere. And do we have a letter for the commissioners about the Redmond Airport for Connect Oregon? Is that,
Nick is going to bring that up today. He sent an email out yesterday to the commissioners. I think it's going to be talked about during your meetings this afternoon. Oh, there's Nick. He can give further detail.
okay,
That's correct, Jen, just in case Nick was in transition of joining.
okay. All right, just wanted to be sure because I have my Connect Oregon packet. It doesn't say Connect Oregon 9 on it, but yes, yeah, things are due.
The board can certainly take action on it at this meeting if you wish.
Well, I just thought it might be easier for the team. I mean, I don't know. What time do I come in and see Kat at like 3, I think? So that means 3, and yeah, if we have like a second at the end. I know Doug said he needs to go like after his update. He's got another hearing he has to be at. So it's 7:59. Where's my gallery? Is everybody on?
There's a fair amount of people on. It's 3, 6,
Oh, I see it's 5.
17. There's 17 on.
Okay, all right, good. So tell me, mine just is showing 4 at this time. And I've got it clicked on gallery, so why is it not showing everybody?
I'm
I'll
not
pop
sure. I don't
Huh?
mind gallery.
I'll
Wendy,
pop
do you
down
have-
the hall.
I know, I'm like going, it's on gallery. It worked at my house. I haven't been, yeah, it worked at my house just fine. I had everybody's picture. And I'm going like,
Mine
well,
shows 20.
yours shows 20. Oh, you're so good. Okay, well. Oh, good. Oh, I have my expert here, my IT expert.
That's great.
I know. It's like, okay, gallery. Yeah. Oh, that little square. Okay, fabulous. 8:01. Let's get going. Sorry. Thank you, Whitney. Okay, update from our legislators. Doug, who is on?
Does not look like any have joined us yet.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's on yet, so I can go ahead and do a quick
Why did you?
overview legislative update.
Sure. Thank you, Doug.
Great. All right, folks, I think we're 10 days out. My guess is that we adjourn, and by the way, Doug Riggs, on behalf of the county, standing here in the Capitol. I had to move down the hall because the jackhammering is so loud outside the committee hearing room. It's just unbelievable. Just a terrible idea to do this. I think we're 10 days out. I believe that we'll be out by the 7th or the 8th. The constitutional deadline is the 10th. They're moving quickly. I think by Monday or Tuesday, they will have made decisions on most of the budget items. They're not going to tell anyone, but Ways and Means staff and leadership and Ways and Means co-chairs met over the weekend, last weekend. They've been meeting every night. The word on the street is that they have narrowed down the list and just have a few items left to make decisions for final funding. I think we're in a good position with some of our county asks. I believe that we are in a good place with community corrections. I think we're in a good place with aid and assist. And I believe that our behavioral health facility ask, the shovel ready ask, is on the list. I've seen it now twice. So I'm optimistic about that. The big news this week has been the unveiling of the updated recommendations on Measure 110. They are significantly different from the first version that came out 2 weeks ago. We sent an email out last night. Corey went through the the early copy of the draft that we got. I would say the couple big changes just really quickly. It's creation of a new misdemeanor. They're calling it a measure or misdemeanor U, or unclassified misdemeanor. And then the way they are structuring the deflection or diversion program is quite a bit different as well. And it appears that the initial drafts give really discretion to the law enforcement folks and the county folks and the DA on whether or not to immediately deflect people into a treatment program, or in certain cases, start out with imposition of a court hearing or a misdemeanor. So it gives local communities a lot more flexibility than existed under the first draft. The funding amounts are still uncertain, both on the shovel-ready projects, but also on the individual items and the additional costs that would impose on counties. I expect to see a lot more details, maybe even as early as today. But it's something we'll have to take a deep dive into. And if Rep. Krupp jumps on, I see Senator Knopp is now on as well. Maybe they can give us some insight on what they're thinking. So that's a quick update. And as I said, I see Senator Knopp's name pop up on here, and I want to be deferential to his time. So maybe we give him an opportunity to give us a quick update, tell us where we are, and and if I'm accurate in my early prediction that we might be out by the 7th or the 8th.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Devon, you have your hand raised.
Just a quick question. This could be for the senator also. Is deflection the term we're using, or does it matter? I'm just kind of wondering that concept, or that what kind of energy is on the terminology?
Doug, did you want me to answer that?
Please.
All right. Well, thank you, commissioners, and thank you all. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. Yes, Commissioner DeBone, deflection is a term that is defined in the 135-page amendment. And so they are going to use that. It is going to be optional for a county/city entity to opt into it. And there are a lot of details that need to be gone through by each entity. But I think you're in a much better position than you were 2 or 3 weeks ago as it relates to this, when it was a Class C misdemeanor and it was also mandatory deflection. I think that was prescription for disaster, quite frankly. I think it wouldn't have worked. And there's too many, I think there was too much potential contact that would have needed to happen that most counties, cities, and law enforcement weren't prepared for. And so I think it would have just taken a really long time to get up and running and roll out. So this way you can opt in when you're ready to opt in if you want to.
Senator Knopp, what else would you like to update us on at this moment?
I would just say that, I think things are generally on track for us to be done, maybe a couple days early. We'll see. And there is not a lot of money available, I will tell you that. So I think some people are maybe misreading how much the ending balance there actually is and so on. We're fighting hard for projects in Deschutes County. There'll be some, I think, behavioral health and housing things that do happen in Deschutes County. I've seen the lists, but the lists aren't finalized at this point. So I would hesitate to suggest what might happen, but I think we were included in both. So I think it's positive from that standpoint. But if you're looking for additional projects beyond housing or behavioral health, I think it's going to be tough sledding, to be honest. So I know there were some meetings that happened yesterday afternoon. I was not involved in those. I was involved in some earlier meetings as it relates to capital construction and so on. Yeah, but decisions are being made, and as they say, it's pencils down on Monday, and everything then is drafted and moved forward. So I think that where you're not going to get everything you want, but I think we are going to get some things that we need. So that's what I would tell you at this point.
Things we need. Okay.
Senator, may I just ask one quick question? Does that include infrastructure to support housing, or like roads and things, utility, infrastructure, or is it just housing related programs? And just curious.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. That's a great question. And all of us are kind of wondering the same thing, because what's happening is there's not a lot of specificity as it relates to the things that have been line itemed. So it's hard to know if it's sewer, water, or road. And, it just basically has either a city or a county and an amount. And sometimes there's a project name, but most of us don't know a lot of the names of these projects, especially statewide. I know some of the local projects, but statewide, we don't know. So I think the answer is yes, that there is infrastructure. It's not just housing, but it's unclear as to what that infrastructure actually is. And I think it's going to be less money too than obviously what the governor wants. I think that's already been reported publicly. So, and that is a bit disappointing, because I think we were hoping to make some more progress on infrastructure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator Cano. I don't have any other legislators joined us. I don't see any of them on my screen at this moment.
I don't see any at this moment either.
Okay. Wow, that could be
Great.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, at least you got Senator Cano, and I'm told
Exactly.
I met with the Civil Air Patrol a couple days ago, and apparently I'm now a major in the Civil Air Patrol. So if you want to call me Major Leader, you can. But we're all laughing about that over here. But nonetheless, we are engaging with a lot of people right now. It is, I would say, a very, very full session, and there is a lot going on. So I know that other legislators have other meetings. I think I missed last week because I had meetings, and so I was able to jump on this morning, and appreciate you guys and meeting and going over what's happening and including us in that.
Great. Well, we appreciate
Great.
you.
Yep. Thank you so much. And I just want to give a shout out to Senator Canope and his staff. I've been in his office almost every single day this session. I tend to have lots of questions, and I get quick response. So I appreciate your open door policy for the county.
I thought it was the coffee and donuts, Doug, but whatever. That's good.
Well,
That's
that too.
No, it's great to have you. Always appreciate it when you or the commissioners stop by, our staff. So it's great.
Right.
Great. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, you bet. See you guys.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Mm.
So, Doug, did you have any more bills that you want to go through then?
Well, just to add a couple things on the housing front. I've been working very hard on housing infrastructure. I think the final package that comes out of Ways and Means is going to have 3 buckets of money for infrastructure. It's going to have, there are 2 specific House bills that kind of pre-vetted housing projects or infrastructure projects over the last 7 or 8 months, and then put them all together in single bills. So there's House Bill 4128. That's a bill put together by Representative David Gomberg and Representative Emily McIntyre from just south of us. That bill has basically water infrastructure projects, and the net total of that bill is about $80.4 million, although several of those bills are duplicated in the second bill that I'll mention. So it's really about $77 million in unique water infrastructure projects that would enable housing to be built. The second bill is House Bill 4134. That is a bill sponsored. It's a bipartisan bill, more Democrat sponsors than Republican sponsors, but it's the main sponsor is Lucetta Elmer from McMinnville. That bill includes 13 projects, including a project in Madras. So in the Gomberg bill, you've got a Redmond project, you've got a Culver project. In the Elmer bill, you've got a Madras project, and I think there's a Prineville project in there as well. So Central Oregon's well represented in those two bills. So I think that part one of the Ways and Means bill that's going to come out will include many of those projects. Especially in the Elmer bill, they're inside the UGB. They've gone through the land use process. They have builder buy-in for the project. It's workforce housing. It's 30% of the housing must be 130% of AMI or below, and it's shovel ready and completed within 2 years. So it's those types of, kind of immediate housing opportunities that I think they're going to latch onto. The second pot of money is a revolving loan fund. This is a Pam Marsh bill. I think there's going to be about $75 million in there for cities and counties and in a repayable loan program, basically a no interest or a low interest program, repayable over a 10-year period of time back into the state budget and then reloaned out at some future point. And then there is rumors of a third pot of money, which would be it's just an available amount of money that looks like they're going to give it to Business Oregon, and Business Oregon would put together an RFP and request for proposals out to cities and counties for housing issues. The other thing I mentioned about the housing bill is something that you talked about as the commission on Wednesday, which is a one-time expansion of UGB for housing purposes with protections for environmental areas and also for prime farmland. That's 100 acres for cities above 50,000, 50 acres for cities below 50,000. I believe that's going to be in the final bill. So that's also an opportunity. Some of the cities in Central Oregon have said that they don't need that from a city standpoint, but I think others like Redmond are interested in that tool at some point in the future.
So Redmond is interested. That's
Yeah, I believe so. I think Lapine has said that they already have more land inside the UGB than they have money to pay for infrastructure to go ahead with. Sisters, I think, is on the fence about that, but it's a tool. It's an optional tool for cities to pursue. And Commissioner Chang, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, Doug, can you update us on the parameters or the requirements, criteria for that one-time UGB expansion at this point? I mean, the way that it was set up before, I didn't think that any cities in Central Oregon would be eligible at this time. But if the parameters are different now, that'd be great to know.
Yeah, Commissioner, that's a really good question. It's something that a number of us have been discussing with Ways and Means. The parameters in the bill, it's actually a very long set of sections. It's 12 sections in the bill that sets up very complicated prescriptions for whether or not a city can take advantage of that. And many of us are urging them to simplify that process. I mean, for instance, one of the issues was if you had done any adjustments to your GB within 20 years, you would not be eligible. Within the past 20 years, you would not be eligible for that procedure. Well, for fast-growing areas, that's really useless. So my understanding is that Ways and Means is going to simplify those provisions, but we'll have to wait and see because no one has, as of yet, seen the amendments that might be offered in Ways and Means. But that is certainly a concern.
So that's not a given yet, but you're thinking, yesterday when we met with Mayor Keebler and Eric King, yeah, it didn't seem like the Gales property was going to be, because it is EFU, but thank goodness they have done their soil study and they are proceeding. So
Well, and there's also, just experience suggests that when the legislature says we are going to make something more efficient, that is not always the case. I mean, for instance, in 2017, the legislature passed House Bill 4079, to accelerate the inclusion of land for affordable housing inside the UGB. It's a bill that I was very involved with at the time. And that has translated into a project in Bend and a project in Redmond. Redmond is North Point. And here we are 8 years down the road, and we're still working on actually building housing. So when the legislature says accelerated, that doesn't always mean that the process ends up being accelerated. So I think it's something we'll have to take a deep dive into the details once we see the final bill, which I expect to see next Tuesday or Wednesday.
That's really scary when the government says accelerated, and it's almost like that bill went backwards. And I think they did say they're going to have some cottages available in 25, but yes. And that process did start in 17, so only 8 years. And of course, Redmond had to reapply because, yes, they didn't quite fit. Commissioner Chang.
Yeah, if I could chime in, it's important for us to recognize that the Gales property, I want the Gales brothers to be able to do something on their property just as much as anyone else. I think we have created that pathway already with the safe parking ordinance that the county passed. But also, I mean, when we're talking about UGB expansions, there are several hundred acres of other lands on the on the edge of the city of Bend between the current UGB and the Gales property. So, I mean, this was only talking about a 100-acre annex anyway. So, I don't think we would even if the city of Bend was able to use this, I don't think we'd be able to get all the way out to the Gales property. But it's also important to recognize that we have had, and Doug referenced this history, we have had a number of one-time legislated urban growth boundary expansions. The Parkside Place and the North Point Vista projects being one example, and then the Stevens Road Tract being another example. So there are opportunities when the county and the cities work together to make things like this happen on a onesie twosie basis rather than as a comprehensive bill for the state. But as we were also discussing just now, you need to structure it right, otherwise it can become very cumbersome. I mean, I honestly, the North Point Vista project, the legislature has done what it needed to do to make that land available for expansion. The slowness is the complexity of putting that project together on the end of the city of Redmond.
Yeah, Commissioner, I think those are good points. The other point, and I think it was raised earlier, is the infrastructure costs. And that's what, from a statewide perspective, it was very interesting working with Representative Elmer on 4134 and talking to a variety of cities that, infrastructure, especially for small cities, is a real obstacle. And in areas that have, geographical challenges, whether that be volcanic lava formations that are expensive to get through, or in the valley you've got some cities that have property on hillsides with environmental considerations, and the cost of putting sewer and water into those hillsides is prohibitive unless the state can step in. So I am a little bit excited about the opportunity that come with those two bills that look like they're going to be incorporated in Ways and Means, and I'll keep you posted on the final list that comes out next week. So I noticed, I wonder if we could go back just a second. I noticed DA Gunnels is on the call, and we also have Holly and Janice. I just want to make sure I flagged for you that email that we sent overnight, and have you take a look at that. I think that digesting the details of the proposal, the revised proposal for Measure 110, probably needs to be something we do quickly. So by Monday or Tuesday, provide some feedback back to me and back to the commissioners on any questions, concerns, or issues we had to raise with Rep Krupp, because he obviously is just about the number one person in the building who who can influence this bill if we see technical issues. So I just flagged that, and then any comments or updates you guys, what you're hearing from your associations might be helpful as well.
DA Gunnels, did you want to make any comments at this moment, or do you want to wait?
Yeah, so I had a chance to look at that email, and also I saw some discussion among the DAs and with Amanda Dalton, who is our lobbyist in Salem for the DAs Association. And so from my point of view, the current proposal is significantly better than the status quo under Measure 110. It improves in a number of areas, not just with drug possession. It improves the law regarding delivery of controlled substances. We've had a real difficult time in the last few years prosecuting what we would consider, that is, old prosecutors would consider drug delivery, because of a Oregon Supreme Court decision that changed the definition of what delivery was. And this fixes that, and it effectively fixes it completely. I think the initial draft of this, the 4002, the House Bill 4002, that legislation had a lot of, from our point of view, disastrous things in it. It would not have been effective. It was extraordinarily complicated and unworkable from my point of view, with virtually no accountability at the end of failure. So this current proposal fixes almost all of that. Almost all of the DA asks and law enforcement asks have been addressed in this current bill, so that we're pretty satisfied that this is as good as it's going to get, and it's not that bad, and it's something that we can work with, and set up our own deflection system, set up processes with the courts so that we can have diversion that works, and functional probation for these possession cases with meaningful consequences if the person who's on those probations fails to follow through with treatment. And so that's pretty much everything we were asking for. And I can live with this version. I haven't seen, and we've had a lot of discussion with this on this draft back and forth, and I haven't seen anything, no big red flags about technical issues and problems with this current version.
But you just used the word diversion, and I thought I was seeing more of the word deflection.
Yeah, so there's different. So at the initial arrest or citation or contact with law enforcement, the person, if the county has a deflection program, the person will be deflected or sent to a treatment program, and the details of that are kind of left up to the county. But if they fail to follow through with that initial deflection, then the DA will charge the person with possession. The case will go to court. The person will be entitled to a diversion similar to DUI diversion, where they'll be on, but in this case, they'll be on supervised probation, and the supervised probation will be paid for by the state, which is really important. It's not just ordering the probation department to supervise with no compensation. If the person fails to follow through with diversion, if they violate, they can get up to 30 days in jail on a violation. And if they again fail to follow through, the court can impose up to 180 days on a revocation, which is what we were asking for, which is meaningful. It's enough, it should be enough to motivate most people to follow through. And even after that point, after they're given 180 days, they can, if they get a inpatient bed or even outpatient treatment that is actually going to happen, they can be released from jail and get day-for-day credit for their participation in those treatment programs. Because the goal of this bill is to get simple drug possession cases, which is just a standalone possession, get those people into treatment, as opposed to, simply trying to throw somebody in jail, which has actually never been what has happened with PCS cases. But there's been a lot of rhetoric around that in the legislature and elsewhere. So this is pretty much everything that we were asking for from the legislature if this bill was going to happen.
Thank you for those comments. Janice, did you want to add anything?
I'm going to defer to Holly. I think she's been in very current conversations about this and has more recent information.
Okay, great. Holly.
Hi. Yeah, I agree with everything Steve has said about this. I think initially I had some hesitation because the language that came out sounded like it was going to require law enforcement led programs. And while I don't necessarily have a strong issue with that necessarily, I was hoping to see something that allowed communities to develop what was going to make sense for their community, given their resources locally. So after kind of attending AOC MHP and hearing kind of more details about the legislation, it sounds like that is in fact the case. And I feel pretty confident with the partnerships that we have here locally that we will absolutely be able to come to the table and figure out what the best program for our community will be, and be able to work this out in a way that will be successful for the people we're trying to serve. So I feel good about it. I don't necessarily, I think there's a few little questions that we have around, I think Janice, actually, you just sent a question to Cheryl around, there's a regional task force that was kind of in there.
It's not in the bill. It is suggested as a next step. And so I was flagging it because anytime I hear about another task force, I'm just like, what's the purpose of that? But it's not actually there are task forces in the bill, but this one is not, I believe, in the bill. It's just planned. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So overall, we're supportive of it now as well, and would be willing to sign on to the letter for commitment. So yeah, that's what I have.
Thank you, Holly. Commissioner Chang.
Well, what I'd love to understand from the three of you and from Doug, and I see that Representative Krupp has joined us as well, so maybe he's the best person to answer this question. All of these deflection and diversion strategies or approaches really depend on there being adequate treatment capacity to deflect or divert people to. And I'm wondering, in the most recent package revision of the bill, whether that is actually covered and is adequately covered to achieve those goals of deflection and diversion.
Is there a fiscal on the bill yet? Rep. Krupp?
Yeah, so there's sort of two different parts of that, and Commissioner Chang, that's a good question. So one is what's in the bill, and there's some direct allocations in that bill. MAT funding for jails. We utilize Measure 110 money for our MAT program, medication for folks who have opioid addictions who are in jail right now. There'll be allocations to set up and coordinate deflection programs in the communities that are choosing to participate. There'll be youth prevention dollars in this bill. There's also going to be a separate funding bill, and you just can't have direct allocations and sort of policy and new program setups in the same legislative concept. So, and that has I'm trying to get a lot of that's the shovel ready projects, fundings for different projects throughout the state. There's a request on that list. You can imagine the list we got was bigger than the budget for the space, but one of those things was money for the stabilization center. I think Holly 1.5 was at the request. Okay. And so that's sort of the two parts. So I'd say, Commissioner, we are still building out that infrastructure throughout the state, right? I mean, I'm sure we could talk about what the gaps that exist in Deschutes County, even with all the work we've been doing the last several years. So yes, we are going to be able to provide more money to the counties, more money to Best Care, for example, to provide some of these services. We still have some work ahead of us. I mean, I like to think about it in more positive terms, which is I think we have really incredible people in our town doing incredible things, and we're going to continue to build on those services.
Thank you.
I can go back to what Holly was talking about. So what the framework we have now is a level of local flexibility, create a deflection program that works with what's happening in your community and the resources and the partnerships that you have within your community. We do have report backs to the Criminal Justice Commission in March of next year, and then July of 26 to sort of take in from, is something working in Portland? Is something working in Bend? Is something not working in Salem? And start having some best practices and some standards to that. And the vision is not to create like a one size fits all, but like, hey, Deschutes County is doing a mobile response, and that's rate of success is much higher than a drop off or a drop in approach. So we are trying to provide the funding necessary to spur on local innovation and then help sort of tease out best practices throughout the state.
Doug, did you have something you wanted to bring to the table with Senator?
Yeah, Representative Krupp, I just have a quick question. So AOC has reached out to the counties and indicated that it would be helpful for counties interested in opting into the deflection program or diversion program right away, that we should do so and sign a letter, and some indication that will open us up for some early funding. So I wanted to clarify, is that actually the case, and what's the deadline for us to be able to indicate that level of commitment?
Well, so, and I'll back up, and I forgot a question of Janice. So all the different agency heads, Janice, are working on their fiscal impact on this concept. So everybody from OHA to community corrections to OJD. Yes, I think with the current framework we're contemplating right now, Doug, is for early counties, there would be a direct allocation mechanism, trying to figure out exactly how we get dollars to the counties as quickly as possible to set these programs up. We have some counties, Marion County is already doing this work. They basically just have to expand something they're already doing. Long term, more like the Justice Reinvestment Framework is probably where we're heading, where there's this non-competitive grant process through the Criminal Justice Commission to access these dollars. But we are counties who step up and say they want to participate in this. We are going to figure out a way to get those dollars out the doors as quickly as possible. And so the sort of rough draft list names we have of those counties, we're starting to calculate what those allocations would look like right now. So if and I realize there is we have commitments from district attorneys, and I realize there's they're independently elected officials who can make decisions about what how they prosecute or don't prosecute cases, but we envision this being a partnership with the district attorney's office and the counties and law enforcement and behavioral health providers in the community. And I don't think it's going to work unless we have partnership on that level locally and then partnership with us at the state level.
Great, thanks. Helpful.
Can I just jump in really quickly? I have a message from Representative Levy that said she could not make the meeting this morning, but just checking in that we're good for the letter at 9 a.m. I just replied, we're discussing it now. And she said, we've lined up the county well for funds if we can get full support. And I just committed to letting her know if the board is going to be inclined to sign the letter before 9 o'clock or not. You're certainly the board's call.
Are you referring to the letter for this bill or for the Airport Connect Oregon funding?
Oh, thank you. It is for this bill, for the Measure 110, exactly what Representative Krupp and the discussion is pertaining to now. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, all right. So Commissioner Chang?
With the unpacking of the deflection scenarios this morning by DA Gunnels and Holly, and the urgency of getting this letter signed, I would support. Well, at least I will be voting to sign on to that letter.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just wondering, I've met people that have come across 4 states, 5 states to come here and do drugs. Is what we're doing, DA Gunnels, is this going to stop the attraction for people crossing the country to come here for drugs at all? Is it showing that we are changing course? I'm really curious.
So I believe it will. It recriminalizes the possession of drugs, down to the user amount, which is typically that's the biggest number of possession cases, is the user amount, not a dealer amount. And there are real consequences, very uncomfortable consequences for somebody who's not willing to go to treatment. So I think it will. So speaking of letters, I signed the letter of commitment, and the sheriff signed it. All of the chiefs of police in Deschutes County signed it, and we've submitted it. I submitted it to our lobbyist, who will pass it on to the legislature. But I'm committed to following through on it. I think it has a good chance of success, and the bill currently, the 4002, has, like I said, it addresses all of our requests to the legislature, and I think it either will be or has a high chance of being successful.
Okay. Thank you so much. Janice, I see your hand up, and then Commissioner Chang.
Yeah, I just wanted to signal to the board that we had some questions about signing, meaning as the CMHP, but we're in a position now where we're absolutely supportive and willing to sign, unless Holly has a different thought. But I think we're good. I think our biggest worry was the flexibility issue, so we're definitely in support. And then the only other thing I would say related to the question about treatment access is we'll see what the dollars are, but we do know that requiring people to have contact with someone who can connect them to treatment just increases the likelihood that they will at some point actually engage in treatment. So it's a step in the right direction. It's not a miracle, but it's better than nothing.
Thank you. Holly, did you want to say something before I go to Doug?
Yeah, yes,
I
real
know
quick.
Doug needs to get off of here soon.
Mine will be quick. I just wanted to clarify, the only risk I saw in the whole thing was really around the funding and not really having any sense of the amount that's going to come to counties to develop these programs. So I think I'm, the little faith involved in and feeling like we're going to get the amount of money needed to set up the type of deflection program that we want. And I think that getting the 50% funding up front, I don't know what 50% of what is yet. So it's just hard to plan around that. But I don't know if Representative Kropp has any information, like feeling like we'll get the type of funding we need in order to set up the type of program we need to do, or has any comments on that.
Yeah, we are gonna fund these programs, and we're gonna help you. We're gonna help you do that. And well, I think there's a variety of reasons for it. I mean, we heard pretty loud and clear about law enforcement needing this tool, as far as stopping things that are happening on the street, and we heard about the need to utilize, do a handoff from the law enforcement system to the behavioral health system. So we want this to be successful, for a variety of reasons. I want, the flaw of the court system is it's never immediate. It is a slow and deliberate process for a lot of valid reasons, but I want systems in place where folks who are struggling with addiction issues can get some immediate contact with people who are going to help them. So that's what I like about this framework. And also our court process is just expensive. I mean, I don't know, I have a guess it's probably $1,000 to walk into court that first day. We talk about public defender and the DA's time and the court time, let alone what happens as far as jail time or being on probation or et cetera, et cetera. So I want us to figure out ways that are more immediate ways to get people help. And I do think there'll be some long-term financial benefit to that, as well.
Thank you, because I've heard about 3 overdose deaths of women in the last week. 3 women overdosed and died. So Anyway, Doug,
Commissioner Adair, I hear all the same stuff, and the comprehensiveness of this package that we're putting together, I will leave no doubt that it is responsive to the moment that we are in right now, and no doubt that it's responsive to the continued long-term commitment we need in this space. You know, Janice, some of the task force stuff that we are trying to set up is how do we continue to monitor and evaluate the gaps that we have in our system and evaluate the dollars, the public dollars that we are spending. You know, there's been an incredible influx of dollars into the system the last 3 years. And I don't say that to pat myself on the back, but that is a reflection of having fallen behind for a number of decades. But part of that also is we need to make sure we're most effectively using those dollars. So that's something we have to kind of figure out and bake into this process as well.
well, they closed the state hospital in Pendleton, I believe 10 years ago. So yeah, it definitely, we need more help. Doug, you've got your hand up. Or did you leave? Doug? Are you frozen? I know, Commissioner DeBonne.
Yeah, so just, showing support. It's good to hear everybody talking about this. The district attorney has given us a thumbs up. The sheriff's office signed on, health, community justice. So, I mean, this is good that we're all kind of taking what we have, and it sounds like a package to move us all forward. Obviously, it was a huge debate a week or two ago, and it's getting landed. So I'm just showing support for signing on to the AOC's letter.
Right. And of course, I'm
Commissioner,
adding on. Yes, Doug.
oh,
You're-
sorry. I was frozen there for a second. So
Yes, I hope it wasn't that
can you hear
cold.
me now?
Yes,
Okay.
it was 22 in Sisters.
No, it's
Go ahead, Doug. You had your hand up.
37 this morning when I got up. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to say a couple things. First of all, President Krupp and his staff, I think this person answered a lot of the concerns and questions and really gives the counties the flexibility to put together a program that works for the county, the DA, the law enforcement folks, the public safety folks, the nonprofits. So I really appreciate that. So as I've been looking through this and been responding to emails during this call, I'm hearing a lot of the rural county associates that we work with saying good things about the package. The only other thing I'd say, Representative Krupp, is I agree that the legislature has put a lot of money into behavioral health workforce, behavioral health, mental health, those kind of things in the last couple of years. The next step really has to be an effort to make the OHA process even just a tiny percent more.
Okay, now he not only froze, but he dropped off. Wow, where is that man? He must be in Alaska.
Commissioner, I'll bet I know where he was headed, and it relates to House Bill 4092. And I don't know if Rep Krupp, you're still on. Well, Doug is back, so if he's not frozen. Doug, were you going to talk about ensuring that there's less administrative burden and that accountability doesn't equate to micro-regulation? Or were you going to say something different?
I couldn't have said it better, and I'm just
Okay.
going to give you one example of House Bill 4039, I think passed in the 2021 legislative session, $139 million for behavioral health workforce money. It took 2 years to get that money RFP'd out to communities. There is no excuse for the agency, and especially OHA, to, in the middle of a crisis, to take that long. And so whatever you can do, putting in this bill and every single other bill, timelines, requirements, there needs to be more trust of local entities, local partners like counties, like local nonprofits. There's not a need to go through a state agency for all of this funding, because housing is another great example. You've allocated $1.4 billion for housing programs in the last year and a half through OHCS, and over $800 million is still sitting at the agency unspent. So we've got to find a way to get our state agencies to be responsive to the crises at hand. And that's, I think, a real challenge. But overall, I just want to thank you for listening to our concerns and comments. And I concur with the staff that as I read it, this bill draft gives the counties and the local communities the flexibility necessary to hopefully do a good job with the adequate funding.
And can I just piggyback for a quick second? Sorry. One of my worries is, yes, there've been huge investments and we're incredibly grateful for them. And we're really struggling to staff these programs. And the two-pronged effort around reducing administrative burden and allowing entities to provide incentives for workforce and pay competitively compared to the private sector, which is draining clinicians into work with easy clients. Those two areas really need to be addressed. And that's the other side of this coin. It's resources and it's staff. And we can't do the good work with people without the staff. So if there's any interest, Rep. Kropf, in kind of talking about the staffing issues and what might be helpful, we're happy to share some information with you about what might help us make progress there.
Yeah, sort of three things or a couple things on that. One, we do have some workforce development investment in this bill, something university based and something a different thing that's going to hopefully pull down some federal dollars. This joint committee is going to continue, and one of the things on the sort of radar for the longer legislative session is sort of a I was going to call it red tape, like that administrative piece. What are the things that we can make it easier for our partners to participate in? So those are conversations we've had, and that is one of the conversations that's going to be happening between now and the 25 session.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
And I guess I would also say this, and Doug, I hear you, and I'm frustrated at times as well with the times it takes agencies to get the dollars out the door. I show a smidge of grace because of the volume that we've handed them to do that in the processes. In some respect, that all the individual processes sort of make sense. You know, the Department of Justice needs to review grants and all that stuff. We do have to find a better way to do that. I also think this is a reminder that all of these issues are like a shared responsibility, right? There are certain things that we can do on the state level. There's certain things we can do on the city, and we can do on the county level. You know, tackling the addiction crisis is some of the steps we're taking now, but a lot of it is, you know, how are we moving forward on building affordable housing in our community? How are we moving forward on setting up and funding shelter operations that get people from crisis to a little bit of stability, and then helping them transition to a little bit more stability? So, you know, all levels of government have a role to play in tackling all these issues. And I'm continuing to work hard in Salem and be a partner for Deschutes County and the city of Bend and the cities in Central Oregon. But this is a shared responsibility that we all have to play a role in.
thank you for those. I know, Doug, you had said you needed to go.
Commissioner, I just wanted to jump in real quick. We have Reagan Canal from the senator's office who's had her hand raised.
Oh, sure. Reagan?
Hi, I just wanted to add in a tiny bit, echoing what Representative Krupp was saying. Senator Knopp serves on the Committee on Ways and Means and is part of the leadership discussions around the total package. And overall, I believe that the investments that you guys are looking for are going to be there at the end of the day. The discussions are in the 9 figures, I believe, in terms of funding. And so I think that ultimately the dollars are going to be there, because just the bill isn't going to work. As you guys are saying, there's going to need to be funding available to stand up these programs and to keep them running and to make sure that they work. And so we'll continue to work on that piece, as Representative Krupp will continue as well. But we are committed to making that a part of this.
Yeah. And then there's other allocations in here that I forgot to mention. There's specialty court allocations. There's allocations for community corrections. There's allocations for counties to community restoration for the aid and assist population as well in this that you'll see.
Great. Heather.
Thank you. Representative Knopp, I heard you mention youth prevention within this bill. I'm just curious if you can speak more to that. Is there going to be any funding around kind of primary prevention?
Yeah, and I apologize, I don't have the sheet in front of me, but yeah, and I can't remember what the number is off my head, but there is multiple avenues for that youth prevention dollars. I mean, one of the things that we heard was, we have to start with prevention, right? We will never be able to spend enough money to like treat everybody if we don't sort of stem the tide on this. So there is multiple different youth prevention programs that we will be funding. And then we are tasking the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission to help create a strategic plan on the youth side, like something to tee us up for 25. What are the steps we have to make in the youth treatment infrastructure?
If I could just point out one thing you might take a look at, which is a bill that's in Ways and Means right now, House Bill 4070. It's the Maxine Dexter bill, et cetera. It's essentially a school-based health center bill.
Yeah.
Right. And the biggest allocation in there is for mental and substance health interventions at all schools. The advantage of that program is that if you invest $1 into a school-based health center, you can build $3 to $4 more for Medicaid private insurance. So essentially for $1, you're picking up $5 of substance abuse prevention and treatment and peer intervention, which what we found in school-based health centers in Deschutes County and elsewhere is that kind of peer pressure, peer intervention on alcohol prevention and drug prevention is about the most useful thing that you can possibly do to change kids' behavior.
Yeah, no, I've been briefed on that bill, and I'm supportive of that, Doug. It's we're going through the final budget sort of machinations right now to figure out how all these pieces are going to fit together.
Yep, great.
Nick, you had your hand up first.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just when the discussion is concluded, I think it'll be helpful to have the board make a motion if you're prepared to do so, and to vote on the letter
Okay.
just before we conclude. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Chang?
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion. And then I also, let me make the motion first, and then I have a question to follow up on Heather's. I move board signature and approval of this letter on House Bill 4002.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So, okay, Nick, you can go ahead with that. And then Commissioner Chang, you wanted to follow up?
Yeah, I just wanted to, Heather was asking about prevention dollars, and then Doug spoke about school-based health centers, both of which are amazing things, but I'm not 100% sure that they completely overlap. At school-based health centers, we're able to provide, one-on-one clinical services for people, maybe early intervention, but it's not necessarily prevention work. And so when Heather was asking about prevention dollars, I just wanted to reemphasize the need for both of those things. We need people to work with kids who are having, mental health challenges or are having early struggles with substance abuse, and we also need prevention dollars. And so thanks, Rep. Crop, for kind of trying to dig into what that prevention dollar piece is in the bill.
Good job, Commissioner. That's a esoteric detail about services that a lot of people don't know, but it is absolutely accurate. School-based health center mental health dollars go to specialty behavioral health care for enrolled kids. They are not broad-based prevention, although those counselors in schools often do some prevention activities with the school, but it's quite different than broad-based intervention that's usually offered through our public health programs that have expertise in those more broad-based prevention activities. So they're really two important ways that we're reaching young people, and they are distinctly different in their activities and their goals.
And this question may come up again during our budget season when we are talking about both supporting our work in school-based health centers, our behavioral health work in school-based health centers, and we're also talking about the Healthy Schools Partnership. So, good to distinguish that now and emphasize the importance and value of both of those things.
Yes. It's almost 9. I'm just wondering, no other legislators joined us. Jen, are there anything on the tracker that we should talk about? It's an emergency.
We have just three bills to discuss. I'll just defer real quick to Kathleen. Two of them are in HR to see if they can wait until next week or if there's a sense of urgency. And then we also have one request to add our logo into opposition for Senate Bill 1575. It didn't pass, but they're going another round on it on Monday, and legal and facilities have looked at the opposition letter or in support of adding a logo if the commissioners see fit. So those are the only outstanding items for today.
Okay, so 1575, adding our logo to that.
Well,
That's a duty to defend
Doug's
opposition.
still there. Want to make sure he's empowered with what he needs.
Doug?
Yeah, I just say really quickly, I'll defer to the staff on duty to defend. It's not something that I'm an expert on, but if they recommend signing the letter, I agree. It failed on the floor, and Senator Przansky changed his vote from yes to no, so he could ask for reconsideration. So that bill might be coming back very soon. The only other thing I'd say is just mention that a lot of work went into Senate Bill 1566, which was the right-of-way bill for county authority. It was a big battle with especially the special districts to keep wastewater out of that amendment, the -8 amendments or -6 amendments. I will say Senator Finley did yeoman's work on our behalf. So we owe Senator Finley a great debt of gratitude, and I've already said thank you to him, but I know Chris was on the phone, and that was quite a victory for counties and for Deschutes County this session. So now it goes to I believe it goes to the floor and then the House, but we still have to keep an eye on it.
Okay, so that was Senate Bill 1566.
I need to hop
Right.
off. Nice seeing everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rep. So, okay, so we need to have a vote then on signing, putting the county letterhead on opposition 1575. Is there a motion?
I need an introduction to that. Just, what are the words of it? And it sounds like we already suggested we do this, but I don't have a content on.
Would
available?
Lee or Dave like to speak a little bit to this bill?
I would defer to Dave if he's available, but just briefly, essentially it changes a common clause in design and engineering contracts. And my concern is that it's something that we commonly include. Sometimes when we make changes such as this, there are unintended consequences. And we haven't locally had concerns from the firms that we work with regularly requesting this change. And so I guess it's just that's my personal approach, not having legal training, but working with the contracts regularly. So with that, I'll pass it to Dave or Chris Doty.
I see Dave on the call.
I agree with what Lee said. I mean, we don't have a problem with it locally, but the board wants to support the bill, that's fine.
No, it's
Well, so
opposed.
the request is to put a logo on an opposition letter at this point in time, correct?
Yeah, I just jump in and say, as I understand it, the problem for counties is that it will then open you up for legal liability in the potentially tens of millions of dollars for mistakes or design flaws that were made by the contracted designer. So, counties hire experts because they are experts and because they have certification and credentials and background, and we have to rely on them to design, to put together designs that are safe and supported by science and data. And so that's why there's always been this kind of balance between what is the liability of a county and what is the liability of the firm that designs a particular project, and this upsets that apple cart.
So I'll move inclusion of Deschutes County's logo on this opposition letter for the bill mentioned. And even if there's more information, let's do it in a long session.
I just add that the letter is very well written and right to the point. So
can I also ask, who has asked us to sign on to this letter?
It's an AOC and other and similar entities efforts.
Okay, you won't second it then?
I'll second.
Okay, further discussion, Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So please do that. Thank you for those remarks. Kathleen, I see you on. I see that these are informational. House Bill 4045. Is there anything you wanted to add on that today?
No, I don't think so. They're not urgent. I think that they're sort of on their way anyway, so
That's what I figure. It's already happening.
yeah. I would just say that there's been some request for, and it's not on here because it didn't make it through committee, but there was a bill to amend the Oregon Equal Pay Act to include some options for well, the problem was that the bill was so broad in its definition that one died. I think the intent was to make an opportunity for bonuses. So that bill, again, hasn't made it through this session. So no real issues. The other ones were including the district attorney and PERS, which is likely to just move on its way. And then there was another one in terms of changing the supervision or supervisor, essentially adding in first line supervisors into the union. And that one is definitely quite a ways down, and that includes anyone or strike prohibited unions. So sheriff's office, for example. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There was from Natural Resources, House Bill 4016. Is Kevin still on? Kevin, is there anything you want to say about this one?
Yeah, so this is just making some changes to the pilot burn program. I don't know if folks are familiar with this, but there's a certified burn manager program that's starting in Oregon. It's one of 15 states that have done this now. You know, California has have been pretty successful with the program. It does add cultural burning to the liability program, and it does give authorization to the state forester to conduct prescribed fire, and also adds rangeland protection associations to the liability program. It also extends the home hardening grant program to Oregon State Fire Marshal's office. Probably the biggest sticking point for me is just really the nature of the Oregon Department of Forestry and how they have protection throughout the state. There are areas that would still not be covered under this liability program. And that's kind of why I'm just not in full support of it, but you know, it could be informational at this time. It does seem like it is moving forward.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yes, that's on page 15 of our tracker. So thank you. It looks like we're a bit over time. Any other comments from the group?
Commissioner, the only other question that you had raised about is whether you wanted to consider the Redmond letter.
Yes, the Redmond letter is due, and yes. So is it a possibility of putting our names on that letter for Connect Oregon?
Yeah, so I'll move approval of Connect Oregon number 9 grant or funding request for the Redmond Airport.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner DeBonne?
I'll vote yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So thank you very much. So at least we have that underway. All right, thank you all. Have a good weekend. And notice we're going to have more snow on Monday. Maybe. Who knows?